I feel like ever since I learned about the concept, I have always wanted to make a game, specifically an RPG Maker horror game, because there's something about them that really captivates me. I don't know if it's the nostalgia or how it presents itself or the stories you can tell through it, but I've always wanted to make a game, but I've never had the idea or motivation to do so until about like a year ago. And I downloaded RPG Maker MZ, and it really just developed from there, and I find myself creating an RPG Maker horror game all on my own. It's not entirely on my own, thank goodness, but I wanted to talk about that because I feel like there's specifically a lot of horror RPG Maker devs out there, and I wanted to share my experience as someone coming into it with literally no coding, game making experience, just as someone who enjoys storytelling and enjoys horror games. Feel free to share your own experiences down in the comments, because I love to hear from other people and relate to them on some way, whether you're a player, a developer, or, you're just passing by. By the way, I don't have any speed paints of me working on the CGs for my game yet, so just enjoy this time-lapse of me making this stupid little looping animation of my Sona. For a little background, hi, I'm Lemon Lavania. I'm mostly an illustrative artist. However, I do heavily indulge in writing. I basically grew up on Resident Evil. I love that franchise, and it definitely shaped my enjoyment of horror today. But if we're talking about specifically RPG Maker games, then I definitely got into that big genre via Mad Father. I watched playthroughs of it on YouTube and I absolutely fell in love. After that came Pocket Watch. After that I kind of fell off of the RPG Maker horror scene, but I kind of got back into it with Dead Plate. But what actually inspired me to start this project is something removed from the RPG Maker horror genre in general. What inspired me was actually analog horror, but I want to get into all of that after I explain the basis of what this game is. I feel like after that you would definitely get a better understanding of where my inspiration would come from and how that changed over time, because this video is just gonna be all about my creative process and in dealing with the difficulties of really big projects all by yourself, mostly. My project is titled Dead Meat Bunker. I usually call it Dead Meat for short, and it's about a team of 4 researchers stuck on an Antarctic base with no real way out and no real reason why they're suddenly stuck there. It's very much so inspired by like isolationist horror, where it really takes place in one confined area, and that isolation is going to manifest externally and affect the 4 main characters, these 4 researchers, in their own unique different ways. I mean, for example, our main character Leon Wells, he's already dealing with chronic clinical depression, and he is dealing with a physical injury that's left him with a disability he can't mentally accept. And those different human reactions that these characters are going to have is primarily what drives me to keep going, even if I'm mostly solo. Which sounds easy enough. I mean, comparatively, if we're talking about like JRPG Maker games and like real RPGs where you travel throughout a big like continent and fight tons of deadly monsters and level up your party, a lot of things to manage, this comparatively is not as complicated, and that's what I thought going into this. And it definitely is not as hard, but I won't say that making an RPG Maker horror game that is captivating and fun and the story is really engaging, it's not easy. Anything to do with creation, if you want it to be a quality product, it's not going to be easy. I spent like 1 or 2 months on the script of the demo alone, and that's only probably going to be about like an hour long. But I wanted to, really hone in and try to make the story as hooking and engaging as it can be at the beginning, because that's really what's going to drive people in. And let me tell you, the first official script read for Dead Meat really gave me a sense of euphoria and catharsis. Finally seeing these characters that I pulled my hair out over be given a voice and sound like people was satisfying, and it really gave me the push to keep going. And I wanted to tell you, the listener, that should show you if I can do it, you definitely can. And don't be afraid to put your best foot forward, especially for something you're passionate about. I'm not going to tell you it's going to be easy, even with RPG Maker, which doesn't really involve a lot of coding. It was a learning curve getting there, and I felt myself getting frustrated over not being able to figure out simple things like learning how to make the fucking footsteps work. I was stuck on that for like almost a day until I figured it out, and it was like the easiest thing in the world. But just be patient with yourself. You have all the time in the world to make your passion project, and if you don't take your time, you're gonna get burned out. That's why I'm not gonna fucking rush on Dead Meat, no matter how badly I want it to get out the door. I want to have fun making it, because that's going to reflect in the game itself. And that's going to lead into my next point, which is definitely expect change. Referencing back to the beginning of this video, I talked about analog horror because Dead Meat Bunker was going to be an analog horror series. I made the first video, I watched it about 1,000,000 times, and I figured out that that's not what I wanted to do. And that was a pretty big change because I had the whole series pretty much planned out, and I suddenly switched gears, and suddenly Dead Meat was not about a simulated psychological horror. It was about 4 researchers stuck in an isolated Antarctic base with horrors beyond their comprehension. No spoilers. Honestly, the only thing that stayed consistent about Dead Meat Bunker throughout its long pre-development history is Leon Wells himself, which is really funny to me. He's always been here, and he's always been clinically depressed. In any case, I remember that the transition between analog horror and RPG Maker horror was kind of upsetting, because I did put a lot of time and effort into the original script and outline, but now I'm not upset anymore because it turned into something greater than it would have been, which would probably just be another generic analog horror series. To wrap this all up in a messy little bow, work on your passion project for sure. Whether it be a web series, a web comic, a game, no matter what it is, go ahead and put your heart and soul into it. Don't overwork yourself, don't be a perfectionist, don't be adverse to change, and do not be afraid of what people might say if you do decide to share it online. The joy of creation is what you make of it, and you can't let your own mind mar you down with thoughts. And also maybe look out for Dead Meat. I'll probably make a video on its own when I finally am wrapping up the demo. I'll definitely be uploading some playthroughs with the voice actors included. That'll be fun. And yeah, thank you so much for watching. Thank you for listening to my mad rambles. I really appreciate it. I really just love to share my experiences, and I love to hear from other people, and I'm excited what you have to say. Anyways, I'm Lemon Lavania. Happy Pride Month, and keep your eyes peeled for Mega Dead Meat Yowie game.